The early 19th century was a turbulent time. Europe was engulfed in the Napoleonic Wars. Great Britain, the world's dominant naval power, found itself locked in a bitter struggle with Napoleon's France. Across the Atlantic, the young United States watched these events with a mixture of anxiety and opportunity. The US, still in its infancy, sought to assert its independence and expand its territory. However, the ongoing conflict in Europe threatened American neutrality and economic interests. Caught between two warring giants, the US faced a difficult choice: appease Great Britain or defend its sovereignty. Despite declaring neutrality, the US faced increasing pressure from both France and Britain. Both European powers sought to restrict American trade with the other. The British Navy, in desperate need of sailors, resorted to impressment. This practice involved forcibly taking American sailors from their ships and forcing them into service for the Royal Navy. This blatant disregard for American sovereignty infuriated the US government and fueled anti-British sentiment among the American public. The Chesapeake Leopard affair of 1807 brought tensions to a boiling point. A British warship, the HMS Leopard, attacked an American frigate, the USS Chesapeake, off the coast of Virginia. The British boarded the American ship and impressed 4 sailors, further inflaming tensions between the two nations. This incident, along with ongoing trade disputes, pushed the US closer to war. By 1812, the US found itself facing a growing list of grievances against Great Britain. Impressment, trade restrictions, and British support for Native American resistance on the frontier all contributed to a sense that war was inevitable. In June of 1812, after much debate and hesitation, the US Congress declared war on Great Britain, marking the beginning of the War of 1812. The War of 1812 was not a sudden eruption of conflict, but rather the culmination of years of simmering tensions between the United States and Great Britain. Several key factors contributed to this boiling point. Impressment, the act of forcibly conscripting sailors into the British Navy, stood as a major point of contention. The British, desperate for manpower during their wars with France, frequently targeted American merchant ships. They would board these vessels, claiming the right to seize deserters, who were often simply American citizens forced into service. This practice deeply offended American sensibilities and challenged the very notion of American sovereignty. Adding fuel to the fire were the restrictive trade policies imposed by both Britain and France during their protracted conflict. Caught in the crossfire of this economic warfare, American merchants found their ships seized and their trade disrupted. The British orders, in Council in particular, aimed to cripple French trade by blockading European ports. These regulations, while understandable from a British perspective, had a devastating effect on American commerce, leading to widespread resentment and calls for retaliation. Westward expansion, a defining characteristic of the young nation, further exacerbated tensions with Great Britain. As American settlers pushed further into the Northwest Territory, they encountered resistance from Native American tribes, many of whom received support from British Canada. The British saw these indigenous allies as a crucial buffer against American expansion and a potential source of leverage in the event of war. This support, whether real or perceived, fueled American suspicions and strengthened the resolve of those who advocated for war. They argued that British actions on the frontier represented a direct threat to American security and expansionist ambitions. Underlying these specific grievances lay a deeper issue: the unresolved tensions stemming from the American Revolution. Many in the United States, particularly those within the Democratic Republican Party, viewed Great Britain's continued meddling in American affairs as an attempt to undermine their hard-won independence. They saw the War of 1812 as an opportunity to finally assert American sovereignty on the world stage and prove their mettle as a nation. This desire for respect and recognition, coupled with economic grievances and security concerns, ultimately led the United States to declare war on Great Britain in June 1812. The declaration of war in June 1812 unleashed a wave of patriotic fervor across the United States. Many Americans, eager to prove their nation's strength and avenge past grievances, anticipated a swift and decisive victory against the British. However, the reality of war proved far more challenging than initially anticipated. The United States, lacking a strong standing army and a unified populace, found itself ill-prepared for a full-scale conflict against the mighty British Empire. Early American attempts to invade British North America, present-day Canada, met with limited success. The American strategy relied heavily on the assumption that Canadian colonists, weary of British rule, would welcome the invading forces as liberators. This assumption proved disastrously inaccurate. Canadian colonists, many of whom had fled the American Revolution, remained largely loyal to the British Crown. They, alongside British regulars and Native American allies, fiercely resisted the American advance.
The American invasion of Upper Canada, launched in July 1812, quickly bogged down due to poor planning, logistical challenges, and stiff resistance from British and Canadian forces. The surrender of Fort Detroit in August 1812 dealt a significant blow to American morale and exposed the weaknesses of the American war effort.
Similarly, attempts to invade Lower Canada, present-day Quebec, also faltered. The Battle of Queenston Heights in October 1812, while a tactical victory for the Americans, resulted in the death of General Isaac Brock, a charismatic British commander who had successfully rallied Canadian resistance.
These early setbacks highlighted the challenges faced by the United States in waging war against a more experienced and better equipped enemy. The vast distances, harsh terrain, and logistical difficulties of fighting in North America further compounded these challenges. Moreover, the American war effort suffered from internal divisions. The Federalist Party, concentrated in New England, vehemently opposed the war, viewing it as a reckless gamble that would only benefit Napoleon's France. This internal opposition hampered the war effort and sowed discord within the nation. Despite these early struggles, the United States remained determined to fight on, clinging to the hope of achieving victory and securing their place as a respected nation on the world stage.